Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most mentally demanding hunts of the entire season, spot and stalk tactics for lone bulls after the rut. When September fades and the last bugles echo out of the timber, a different game begins. The chaos of the rut is over. Cows peel off into winter groups, the bulls that survive worn down, sore, and paranoid. They've been chased, called to, winded, and pressured for weeks. Now they want one thing: security. They slip away into steep, broken country and move quietly, often alone. And this is when a lot of hunters hang it up or switch tags. But if you can adapt, slow down, and start thinking like a bull in recovery mode, October and November can offer some of the most rewarding hunts you'll ever experience. In this episode, we're going to break down exactly how to approach those post-rut bulls, how to understand their behavior once the cows are gone, how to find the right country and glass it effectively, how to plan your approach around wind and terrain, and how to execute the final stalk without being seen or heard. This is the stage where patience, fieldcraft, and mental toughness replace bugles and adrenaline. So let's get into it. Once the rut winds down, bulls go through a major behavioral shift. During September, they're driven by one instinct: to breed. By October, that switches to survival and recovery. Their necks are sore from fighting. They've lost 20 to 30% of their body weight, and they now know winter isn't far off. That physical and mental state shapes every decision they make. Isolation and recovery are key here. After the rut, mature bulls often isolate themselves completely. Younger bulls might still hang together in twos or threes, or maybe even trail some cows. But the older ones, the ones that have been through multiple seasons, tend to vanish into steep, remote pockets. They seek solitude because they're vulnerable. Their priority is rest, feed, and safety. They'll often choose north-facing slopes or broken benches with shade, good visibility, and multiple escape routes. Those shady slopes hold cooler temps and better moisture, which means more green feed later in the year. They're going to bed where they can watch their back trail and feel secure in swirling winds, spots where you almost have to stumble into them to even know they're there. In the morning, these bulls feed briefly on open edges or small openings before sliding back into cover early, often well before sunrise or if there's been pressure. They may not get up again until late afternoon. During midday, they might stand, stretch, and nibble a bit in their bedding area before lying back down. It's a very minimal movement pattern, which is why still hunting or blind calling doesn't really work in this phase. You're going to bump a lot of elk. After surviving weeks of hunters and other competition from other bulls, lone bulls operate in constant defensive mode. Their ears, eyes, and noses are tuned into everything. You're going to see them use terrain like a chessboard, betting with the wind at their back and a vantage point below them. They trust wind and terrain more than anything, and that's the same mindset you need to hunt them with effectively. Bulls in recovery mode aren't moving long distances daily. Instead, they tend to stay tight in a comfort zone, small drainages, burns, or folds in the terrain with both feed and security cover. This means you can pattern them if you glass and observe carefully over a few days. When you finally spot one, try not to rush in. Remember, he's not going far. Let the wind and terrain dictate your next move. Understanding this post-rut behavior is the foundation of every successful spot and stalk. You're not hunting a herd now. You're hunting a survivor that's learned every trick in the book. If you want to close the distance, you have to outthink him. Slow down, glass longer, and move only when it's time. Once you understand how post-rut bulls think, the next step is learning where to look and how to look effectively. Spot and stalk success after the rut starts long before you take a single step. It begins behind your glass. When bulls split off from the cows, they move into quiet, broken country that offers food, shade, and safety from both predators and hunters. You're going to find them where visibility is limited, human traffic is low, and wind lines are predictable. These aren't the open ridges and meadows you hunted during the rut. They're smaller, tucked away sanctuaries that most hunters walk right past. You should focus on areas that balance cover and feed. Think mid-elevation benches on north or northeast facing slopes. Places that still hold green feed but stay shaded through the day. Burn edges, small avalanche chutes, and isolated meadows buried inside thick timber are all prime examples. Mature bulls love terrain that gives them options. Open enough to feed at night, shaded enough to bed during the day, and steep enough that danger can't approach silently. If you find a base that offers both a good glassing angle and consistent wind, you've likely found the kind of country bulls retreat to after the rut. The best locations usually sit away from heavy pressure, 1 or 2 drainages deeper than where a lot of hunters are willing to go. When you're glassing for lone bulls, your goal isn't to cover miles. It's to pick apart micro features until something shows up. Bulls in October and November are masters of blending in. They're going to stand in dark timber or feed in shadows just long enough to vanish again. And if you're rushing, you're going to miss them. So start by breaking the country into near, mid, and far zones. Use a slow, systematic grid pattern, scanning every pocket until you've mentally cleared the hillside. Focus on edges, the top of a cut where timber meets grass, the margin of a burn, or that thin transition line where sunlight meets shadow. Those are the small windows where bulls often appear briefly to feed or stretch before bedding back down. When you think you've covered a hillside thoroughly, stop, rest your eyes, and glass it again. You're going to be amazed how often a tine or an ear or the curve of a rump suddenly appears on the second or third pass. Mature bulls rely on stillness for survival. Your job is to defeat that stillness with patience. Morning and evening are still your prime windows because the light angle gives away movement and body outline. But don't underestimate midday glassing on cool days. Bulls will often rise from their beds to reposition for shade or thermals, and those few minutes are your window of opportunity. Try to position yourself where the sun is at your back, thermals are steady, and you can glass multiple drainages without having to move. The best glassing points aren't always the highest peaks. They're the ones that let you look into shaded cover at a comfortable angle and hold a stable wind line. When you finally spot a bull, take your time, study everything before you make a move. Note where the wind is blowing, how the terrain folds, and how the bull is oriented. Watch whether he's feeding uphill or downhill, facing into the wind or away from it, and how often he looks around. Every detail you record in those first few minutes will dictate your stalk. You've got to mark that spot precisely on your GPS or at least a mental map of landmarks that are going to guide you when the terrain looks different up close. And trust me, it always does. Finding lone bulls after the rut isn't about luck. It's about discipline and observation. You're hunting shadows, color shifts, and small clues that a lot of people overlook. The hunters who slow down, glass longer, and interpret subtle terrain cues are the ones who consistently turn those quiet October days into real opportunity. Once you've found a bull worth moving on, everything you do from that moment forward either sets you up for success or guarantees your failure. The hardest part of a spot and stalk hunt after the rut isn't just finding a bull, it's closing the distance without being detected. Bulls at this stage of the year have survived weeks of human pressure and every predator the mountain has to offer. They trust their nose and their ears far more than their eyes, and that's where your plan begins. Before you even take a step, you've got to understand exactly what the wind is doing, how the terrain funnels it, and when you can move without being seen or heard. Wind is the single most critical factor. In October and November, thermals can shift faster than you expect because of cooler mornings and long shadows. You might have uphill flow 1 minute and a side draft the next. Never assume the wind you feel at your glassing point will be the same halfway down the ridge. Use wind indicators constantly, puffer for short, milkweed for long, and if you see your powder drifting unpredictably, back out. A swirling wind will ruin even the best stalk. I like to watch how grass, aspen leaves, or even snow that's falling moves in the basin before committing. It gives you a better picture of what the wind is doing over the entire pocket instead of just relying on what you feel and see in one spot. Terrain dictates how you close the gap. The best route is rarely the most direct one. Look for terrain features that hide your movement, like small folds, ridge lines, fingers of timber, and shadowed gullies. Move along those natural seams that keep you out of sight, but still give you a consistent wind line. Sometimes you're going to need to drop lower and come up from below a bull's level if that's where the thermals are flowing down. Other times you're going to have to side hill across a slope just below the skyline so your scent lifts over him if they're going up. Every stalk is a chess match, and the mountain gives you the pieces if you take the time to study them. Timing is another crucial piece here. The most productive stalks often happen midday once thermals stabilize and a bull is bedded. If you can find a bedding area with steady thermals, a shaded approach, and minimal deadfall or noisy ground, you're in business. But timing isn't just about wind, it's about patience. A bull might feed for 30 minutes and bed within 50 yards of where you first spotted him. If you move too early, you might bump him before he settled. So watch from afar, note exactly when he beds, and let him get comfortable before you make your move. When it's time to start your stalk, stay deliberate and disciplined. Every sound you make needs to blend naturally with the country. Footsteps only when wind gusts. Movement only when the bull's head is down or turned away. Using shadows and terrain to your advantage, keeping your silhouette low and your pace slow. If you find yourself rushing, stop. Take a knee, listen, and get back in rhythm with the mountain. A mature bull will catch even the smallest bit of unnatural noise or movement. And try to remember that everything about his world revolves around staying alive. He's looking for what doesn't fit. Your job is to blend in so completely to the landscape that you never register as a threat. Successful spot and stalk hunters know that planning the approach isn't a step, it's the hunt itself. Once you commit, you're not improvising anymore. Every movement has a reason, and every decision should tie back to wind, terrain, and timing. If any one of those three starts to slip out of your control, it's better to stop the stalk and wait. Patience in those moments separates the hunters who get close from the ones who just collect stories about the one that got away. When the plan is in place and you start to close the distance, this is where the hunt becomes a test of discipline and control. Every step matters, every sound counts, and every decision has consequences. The closer you get, the smaller your margin for error becomes. You're entering the bull's comfort zone now, the area he trusts completely. He may not see you or hear you yet, but one wrong thermal shift or a twig underfoot can change that instantly. The key to closing the distance is reading the situation and moving according to it. If the bull is bedded, your approach needs to be super slow, super methodical, and super silent. This is when you use every bit of terrain available: rocks, brush, shadows, elevation changes, all to disappear. The best stalks aren't built on speed, they're built on patience. You might spend 2 hours covering 200 yards. When you're within striking distance, that's exactly the kind of pace it takes. Bulls in recovery mode don't move often, but they're constantly aware. They'll shift their head, stand to stretch, or reposition with the wind, and that's when you have to freeze completely. Movement kills stalks faster than noise, and the hunters who can lock into stillness when it counts are the ones who fill tags. If the bull is up and feeding, the rhythm of his movements becomes your cue. Wait until he puts his head down or moves behind cover before you take your next step. Keep your movements short, controlled, and deliberate. Avoid wide, sweeping arm or legs that catch light. Stay low and try to flow with the terrain. Even when it feels like you should rush to close that last bit of ground, don't do it. You're far better off getting there 5 minutes late than 5 seconds too soon. Pay constant attention to the wind. It can shift without warning, right? Especially when you start moving through draws or timber pockets. Sometimes the best move you can make is no move at all. Wait for a change, even if it takes half an hour. A bull's nose is unforgiving. You can beat his eyes with shadows and his ears with timing, but you're never going to beat his nose if the wind gives you away. Every surface under your feet also tells a story. Dry leaves, frost, deadfall, loose rock, they all sound different depending on temperature and moisture. On frosty mornings, wait until the sun softens the ground or snow before you move. On dry days, shift your weight carefully and step on solid dirt instead of crunchy debris. If you can, plan your approach across grass or duff, not rock. If you do have to cross noisy ground, try to time your step with natural cover sounds like gusting wind or maybe even squirrels or the ravens. The goal is to blend into the rhythm of the landscape so that nothing you do feels foreign to the environment around you. As you close inside that final 100 yards, your awareness needs to sharpen. Watch the bull's body language if you can, right? Watch it constantly if you can see him. A flicking ear, a raised head, or a stiff posture means he's alert and scanning for danger. When that happens, you've got to freeze. Don't duck or flinch. Just become part of the terrain. Movement triggers recognition faster than anything else. Bulls may look in your direction several times without identifying what you are. So just stay calm, stay still, and wait for his attention to drift. When he goes back to feeding or bedding comfortably, then and only then do you move again. The final approach often comes down to micro decisions. Do you wait for him to stand naturally, or do you take the shot where he lies? Do you circle a few yards higher to get the wind right, or do you risk a straight line to stay unseen? These are judgment calls that experience teaches you to make, but they all stem from the same principle. Never force it. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So back off and wait for a better angle and let the situation develop naturally. The best stalks feel effortless, not because they were easy, but because they were perfectly timed. When everything comes together, the wind is steady, the bull is unaware, the distance is closing, you're going to feel it. The world goes quiet, your breathing slows. Every movement feels deliberate. That's the moment a lot of hunters rush, but that's when you should slow down even more. Let patience guide you through the final yards. Trust the process that got you there. The stalk isn't over until your arrow or bullet is on its way, and sometimes that last few seconds of calm is what separates a clean, ethical kill from a story about almost. The difference between a close call and a filled tag usually comes down to timing. Knowing when to wait and when to move is one of the hardest instincts to develop as a spot and stalk hunter, especially on a lone bull after the rut. By the time you're inside that final 100 yards, the margin for error is so thin that impatience almost always costs the opportunity. It's happened to me countless times. Every fiber of your body wants to move, to get into position, to make something happen. But the truth is, the best stalks end because the hunter knew when not to act. If you're watching a bedded bull, the most important thing you can do is let the situation play out naturally. A bull that's comfortable will eventually stand, stretch, and reposition on his own. It might take hours, but if you wait him out, you're going to often get a clean shot opportunity without ever having to force it. When bulls are in this recovery mode, they operate on routine. Feed, bed, rest, and feed again. If he hasn't sensed danger, he's not going anywhere. Waiting him out isn't wasted time, it's just smart hunting. The mountain rewards patience. That patience also means recognizing when the situation is shifted against you. If the wind starts to swirl, if shadows move in a way that exposes you, or if you realize your shooting lane has disappeared, back out. There's no shame in letting a stalk go. Every blown opportunity that ends quietly is a lesson that sets you up for the next one. What kills most stalks isn't the wind or terrain, it's the hunter refusing to adapt, trying to force it. The best hunters in the mountains know that pulling back doesn't mean giving up. It means living to stalk that same bull another day. When the bull finally does stand, your job is to stay calm and let the moment unfold. You'll have seconds, sometimes less, to make the right decision. You've got to make sure you're ready to take a breath, settle your nerves, and let your training take over. Don't rush the shot just because you've waited all day to take it. Bulls at this time of year are incredibly keyed in to movement and sound. A draw too fast, a boot scuff, or a safety click can turn a perfect setup into a vanished opportunity. So move deliberately. Every action should be smooth and natural, nothing sudden or jerky. And sometimes you're going to need to reposition as the bull feeds or changes direction. This is where reading his body language is everything. A relaxed bull feeding slow, flicking flies, or turning broadside without tension gives you a green light. But a bull that's stiff, scanning, or flicking his ears sharply is on alert. If you push that scenario, you're going to lose. The best move is often no move at all until he relaxes again. The mountain is going to show this to the hunters who listen. Once you're in position and the shot presents itself, try to slow down even more. This is where composure wins the day. Focus on one small spot. You've got to visualize the shot and commit. Whether you're shooting a bow or a rifle, it's the same discipline. Control your breathing, trust your anchor, and follow through. You've done the work to get here. Now finish it the right way. Clean, ethical, and deliberate. The moment you release, stay focused on the bull, not the outcome. Watch for the hit, watch for his reaction, and be ready for a follow-up if needed. After the shot, patience still matters here. Unless you watched him go down within sight, don't rush into the area. Bulls hit during this time of year are tough and can go a long way if pushed too soon. So mark the last place you saw him, wait, and listen. Give it time for things to settle before you start tracking. Every blood trail tells you a story, and the slower you read it, the better the ending is going to be. Spot and stalk hunting for lone bulls after the rut isn't about just closing the distance. It's about controlling every variable you can while accepting that some are out of your control, right? The best hunters don't force success. They position themselves so that success happens naturally. Waiting when others move, moving when others freeze, and trusting instinct when logic says stop. That's what separates the few who consistently fill tags from the many who just find tracks and stories. Spot and stalk hunting for lone bulls after the rut is one of the most demanding and rewarding pursuits in all of Western hunting. It strips everything down to patience, precision, and self-control. There's no noise, there's no bugles, no herds to follow. Just you, the wind, and one bull that survived a season of chaos. Those hunts remind you that success isn't about just covering the most ground or calling the loudest. It's about reading the country, trusting your instincts, and letting the mountain set the pace. Every move you make out there is going to teach you something. Some lessons come easy, most come hard. You're going to blow stalks. You're going to get winded. You're going to watch bulls vanish into timber you thought was yours to take. But each time you go back, you move quieter, read wind faster, and see more than you did before. That's how hunters are built. Failure, adjustment, and relentless persistence. If you stay patient, disciplined, and willing to adapt, those quiet post-rut hunts can become your most consistent success window of the season. There's nothing more satisfying than slipping through broken timber, seeing the shape of antlers ahead, and realizing you earned every inch of that encounter by outthinking the mountain and the bull instead of overpowering it. That's what spot and stalk is all about. Intentional, precise, and earned the hard way. If you're serious about taking this kind of knowledge deeper, that's exactly why I built Team Backbone. It's more than just a membership. It's a way to sharpen your edge with exclusive tools, strategies, and a tribe of hunters who refuse to quit. Inside, you're going to get 20% off site-wide on all Backbone Unlimited gear, a member-only t-shirt shipped to your door every month, not available anywhere else, full access to the digital content vault of guides, checklists, fitness programming, backcountry strategies, and mindset training, a private Facebook group with direct access to me, and a community of driven hunters who live relentless. Direct call, text, or email access to me for personalized advice on training, hunting strategy, or just sharpening your edge, and automatic entry into monthly gear giveaways. This is built for the guys who train for the hunt, push themselves in the off season, and want to be part of a tribe that makes them better. If you're ready for that kind of inner circle, then Team Backbone is waiting for you at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.